The sprawling mega-city of Nexus Prime stretched endlessly across the horizon, its crystalline towers piercing the violet-tinted sky like frozen lightning. Beneath the perpetual glow of holographic advertisements and orbital stations, 17 million souls navigated the tangled layers of humanity's greatest achievement. The year was 2847, and Earth had long evolved beyond recognition. Climate engines regulated every weather pattern, synthetic food sustained the masses, and artificial intelligence governed the mundane tasks that once defined civilization. Yet despite humanity's technological mastery, there existed mysteries that refused explanation, ancient riddles buried beneath centuries of concrete and steel. Deep within the lower sectors of District 12, where the artificial sunlight rarely penetrated the smog-choked corridors, lived Aria Voss. At 26 years old, she worked as an acoustics engineer for Harmonix Corporation, designing soundscapes for virtual reality experiences. Her laboratory occupied a converted warehouse where metal beams crisscrossed overhead like the ribcage of some mechanical giant. The space hummed constantly with the white noise of machinery, a symphony of progress that most citizens had learned to ignore. Aria, however, heard everything, every frequency, every harmonic, every whisper hidden within the static. She possessed what her colleagues called perfect frequency perception, an almost supernatural ability to distinguish sounds within impossibly narrow bandwidths. While others relied on instruments and readouts, Aria could close her eyes and map an entire acoustic environment through hearing alone. This gift had earned her recognition within Harmonix, but it also isolated her. In a world where most communication happened through neural interfaces and silent data streams, Aria remained stubbornly analog, preferring the texture of sound waves against her consciousness. On the morning that would alter everything, Aria received an unusual assignment. Her supervisor, Director Yun-Hee Park, summoned her to the executive level, a place she had visited only twice in 4 years. The elevator ascended through 43 floors, each transition marked by subtle changes in air pressure and ambient temperature. When the doors opened, Aria stepped into a corridor lined with bioluminescent panels that shifted from azure to emerald as she passed. Director Park waited in a conference room constructed entirely of transparent aluminum, offering a panoramic view of Nexus Prime's eastern districts. "Aria, thank you for coming," Director Park began, her voice carrying the clipped efficiency of someone accustomed to managing multiple priorities simultaneously. She was a woman in her late 50s, her silver hair styled in geometric precision, her augmented eyes displaying faint data streams even during conversation. "We've encountered something unprecedented in our archaeological division. They've excavated a chamber beneath the old metro tunnels, pre-collapse era, possibly earlier. Inside, they discovered what appears to be an instrument, though its design matches nothing in our databases." Aria leaned forward, curiosity overriding her usual reserve. "What kind of instrument?" "That's precisely what we need you to determine," Director Park continued, sliding a holographic display across the table. The image showed a cylindrical object approximately 2 meters long, constructed from an unknown metallic compound that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its surface, not the pictographic languages of ancient Earth civilizations, but something altogether alien in structure. "Our analysts believe it might be a ceremonial object, but spectral analysis indicates it was designed to produce sound. Specifically, it generates frequencies we've never encountered in any historical record." The hologram rotated slowly, revealing intricate apertures along the instrument's length. Aria studied the configuration with growing fascination. "Has anyone attempted to play it?" Director Park's expression darkened slightly. 3 researchers tried. All 3 reported severe disorientation followed by vivid hallucinations. They claimed to hear voices, ancient voices speaking in languages that predated human civilization. The medical team attributed it to infrasonic resonance affecting neural chemistry, but I want your assessment before we proceed further. Within the hour, Arya descended into the excavation site. The journey required passing through security checkpoints manned by automated defense systems and descending a makeshift elevator shaft that dropped nearly 200 meters into the bedrock beneath Nexus Prime. The air grew colder with each level, carrying scents of mineral deposits and something else, something organic and ancient that reminded Arya of museums she had visited as a child. The archaeological team had established a temporary laboratory in what appeared to be a vast underground cavern, its walls lined with structures that predated the megacity above by millennia. Dr. Mikhail Torres, the lead archaeologist, greeted her with obvious relief. He was a compact man in his early 40s, his face weathered from years of fieldwork, his hands perpetually stained with the dust of forgotten civilizations. "Miss Voss, I'm grateful they sent someone with your expertise. This discovery has challenged everything we understood about pre-collapse history. These ruins, they shouldn't exist. The architectural techniques, the materials, the sheer scale of construction. We're looking at engineering capabilities that supposedly developed centuries after this chamber was sealed." The instrument rested on an analysis platform surrounded by sensor arrays and recording equipment. Up close, it possessed an unsettling beauty. Its surface seemed to shift subtly in the artificial light, as though alive. Arya approached slowly, her trained ear already detecting something unusual. The cavern itself produced a constant low-frequency drone, barely perceptible but present nonetheless, as though the stones themselves vibrated with residual energy. "May I?" she asked, reaching toward the instrument. Dr. Torres hesitated. The others who touched it experienced significant psychological effects. "We've documented temporal disorientation, auditory hallucinations, and in one case, a complete dissociative episode lasting nearly 6 hours. I must advise caution." But Arya's fingers were already brushing the cool metal. The moment contact established, sound exploded through her consciousness. Not through her ears, but directly into the auditory processing centers of her brain. She heard layers upon layers of harmonic complexity, frequencies weaving together in patterns that suggested not randomness, but deliberate composition. Beneath it all pulsed a rhythm, slow and vast, like the heartbeat of something unimaginably large, sleeping in depths beyond human comprehension. "It's not an instrument," Arya whispered, her voice distant. "It's a key." The revelation struck her with complete certainty. This object wasn't designed to create music for entertainment or ceremony. It existed to unlock something, to trigger a response from... What? Her mind raced through possibilities, each more improbable than the last. The symbols covering the surface weren't decorative, they were instructions, a musical score written in a notation system that transcended conventional understanding. Dr. Torres moved closer, his concern evident. "Arya, your neural readings are spiking. Perhaps you should—" "I need to play it," she interrupted, her voice carrying absolute conviction. "The frequencies are specific. They're coordinates, a sequence that must be performed exactly. If even one harmonic is incorrect, the pattern fails." Against every protocol and safety regulation, Arya lifted the instrument. It weighed almost nothing, defying its apparent mass. She positioned it according to the intuitive understanding that had flooded her consciousness upon contact. Her lips found the primary aperture, and she began to play. The first note emerged as a low, resonant tone that seemed to bypass the air entirely, vibrating through the bedrock itself. The cavern responded immediately. Dust fell from ancient stones, and the sensor arrays began registering seismic activity spreading outward from their location. Arya continued, following the pattern that now existed in her mind as clearly as her own memories. Each subsequent note added complexity, harmonics layering upon each other in mathematical precision. Then something answered. From somewhere impossibly deep beneath Nexus Prime, a vibration emerged that dwarfed anything human engineering had ever produced. It started as a tremor, barely measurable, but grew rapidly in intensity. The archaeological equipment began shorting out, overwhelmed by electromagnetic interference that shouldn't exist at such depths. Dr. Torres was shouting something, but Arya couldn't hear over the rising crescendo of sound that filled not just the cavern, but seemed to resonate through every molecule of matter. Far above, in the inhabited levels of the megacity, citizens paused in their daily routines as a sound unlike anything in living memory reverberated through the infrastructure. It wasn't quite audible, existing on the threshold of perception, but everyone felt it, a presence awakening after an eternity of dormancy. Emergency systems activated across Nexus Prime, detecting seismic anomalies that conventional geology couldn't explain. Within the Global Defense Network, artificial intelligence protocols triggered alerts about unidentified energy signatures emerging from deep within the planetary crust. Arya completed the sequence, the final note hanging in the air like a question posed to the universe itself. For 3 heartbeats, absolute silence claimed the cavern. Then from the darkness at the chamber's far end, something stirred. The archaeologists' portable lights illuminated what they had assumed was another stone wall. But now that surface moved, shifted, revealed itself as something else entirely. Scales. Iridescent scales the size of tower shields, each one catching and refracting light in colors that human optics struggled to process. The wall wasn't a wall, but a hide, a living surface that belonged to something vast beyond comprehension. An eye opened, luminous and ancient, its iris containing depths that suggested intelligence older than human civilization. The dragon, because nothing else in mythology or science could describe such a creature, had awakened. Its voice, when it came, resonated not through sound but through direct consciousness, bypassing language entirely to convey meaning through pure conceptual transmission. Singer. The cycle turns once more. What epoch greets the ending of our rest? Arya stood frozen, every rational thought overwhelmed by the impossibility before her. Dragons existed only in mythology, in the folklore that humanity had left behind during its technological ascension. Yet here, beneath the greatest city Earth had ever produced, lay evidence that myths were memories, distorted by time perhaps, but rooted in terrible truth. Dr. Torres found his voice first, though it emerged as barely more than a whisper. This is impossible. Dragons are fictional constructs, psychological archetypes representing humanity's fears and aspirations. They can't be real. The great eye shifted focus, regarding the archaeologist with what might have been amusement. Your kind has always preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. We are the eldest, the first children of this world, and we have slept through your brief ascendancy. How many generations have passed since last the forbidden song was sung? Arya's mind worked frantically, trying to reconcile impossible reality with everything she understood about history and biology. How long have you been here, beneath our city? We do not measure time as you do, Singer. Your civilization rose and fell and rose again while we dreamed. The last who knew our names and sang the ancient harmonies departed this world when your ancestors still huddled in caves. We retreated into slumber, for the age of scales and fire had ended, and the age of soft flesh and clever fingers had begun. But the song endures, carried in the deepest memories of your kind, waiting for a voice pure enough to speak it once more. Seismic readings throughout Nexus Prime continued escalating. In emergency coordination centers across the megacity, officials struggled to understand reports flooding in from deep Earth sensors. Something was moving beneath the city, multiple somethings, massive beyond scale, shifting after centuries of absolute stillness. The dragon before Arya wasn't alone. How many others slumbered in the planet's depths, waiting for the song to wake them? Why? Arya asked, her voice steadier now despite the cosmic terror of the moment. Why create a song that would wake you? Why allow the possibility of discovery? The dragon's eye closed slowly, then reopened, and Arya sensed profound sadness in that ancient gaze. Because there comes a time when even dragons must fulfill their purpose, Singer. We are guardians, not conquerors, custodians of this world's deepest secrets and oldest sorrows. When the forbidden song sounds, it heralds not awakening alone, but necessity. Something approaches, something that required our vigil to end and our intervention to begin. Intervention in what? Dr. Torres demanded, his scientific training reasserting itself despite the impossibility surrounding them. In the survival of your species, the dragon replied, and the cavern trembled with the weight of those words. Look to your skies, children of the brief epoch. Look to the darkness between stars. Your instruments have detected it already, though your leaders suppress the knowledge. The Void Fleet comes, as it has come before to other worlds, other civilizations. We slumbered through your infancy that we might be present for your trial. Arya's blood turned cold. The Void Fleet. 6 months ago, deep space observation networks had detected anomalous objects entering the solar system from interstellar space. The Global Council had classified the information immediately, citing public safety concerns, but rumors had spread through academic and military channels. Objects moving with purpose, defying known physics, approaching Earth along vectors that suggested deliberate navigation. The official explanation attributed them to unusual asteroid formations, but few scientists believed that convenient lie. You're saying those objects are hostile, Arya whispered. Hostile implies emotion, malice, intention, the dragon corrected. The Void Fleet is none of these things. It is a function, an algorithm written into the fabric of this galaxy by intelligences so ancient that even we remember them only in fragments. It seeks complexity and extinguishes it, returning matter to simpler states. Every civilization that reaches your current level of development attracts its attention. Most fall. Some, very few, survive. Those who survive do so because they possess guardians. The implications staggered Arya's comprehension. How many dragons are there? How many have awakened? Across this world, in the deepest places, 17,342 of the eldest stir. Not all will wake fully. Some slumber too profoundly and have forgotten the summons. But enough. Enough to fulfill our purpose, if your kind can accept what must be done. And what must be done? Dr. Torres asked, though Arya suspected he already feared the answer. The dragon shifted, and the movement revealed its true scale, a body extending backward into darkness that swallowed the archaeologist's lights, a mass that suggested not a single creature, but a living mountain. When it spoke again, the words carried the weight of prophecy. You must remember what your ancestors forgot. You must learn again the harmonies that bind flesh to scale, thought to flame. You must become once more what you were before the long forgetting, partners with the eldest, voices joined in the symphony of survival. The Void Fleet will arrive in 93 of your days. In that time, singers must be found and taught, bonds must be forged, and preparations must be made. Your technology alone cannot preserve you. But technology wedded to the ancient powers, human ingenuity united with dragon might. The great eye fixed upon Arya with terrible intensity. That combination has defeated the Void before. It can do so again. Arya felt the crushing responsibility of that gaze. The implication that her random curiosity and acoustic talent had thrust her into a role of cosmic significance. Why me? Why was I able to play the song when others failed? Because you hear truly, singer. Most of your kind process sound as mere vibration, mechanical waves traveling through matter. But you perceive deeper. You touch the mathematical essence of resonance, the fundamental harmonies that structure reality itself. This gift runs in bloodlines, passed down through generations, often unrecognized but never lost. Your ancestors were singers in the ancient compact. The ability sleeps in your DNA, waiting for necessity to awaken it. Before Arya could respond, emergency communications erupted throughout the excavation site. Doctor, Torres's neural interface flashed urgent alerts, and he staggered slightly as information flooded his augmented perception. The city. The entire city is in lockdown. Military forces are mobilizing. They're detecting massive biological signatures beneath every major population center. The Global Council has declared a Class Omega emergency. They fear us, the dragon observed with what might have been amusement. As well they might. We represent power beyond their control, forces their weapons cannot easily quantify or contain. But fear must give way to understanding, and quickly. Time grows short. Arya made a decision that would define everything that followed. Then we need to make them understand. We need to show the Global Council that you're not a threat, that you're humanity's only chance. The dragon's eye gleamed with approval. Spoken as a true singer. Very well. The ancient compact is renewed, beginning with you, Arya Voss. Place your hand upon my scale and speak your true name, not the designation your society assigned, but the name your deepest self knows. This is the first harmony, the foundation from which all others grow. With trembling fingers, Arya reached forward and pressed her palm against the nearest scale. It felt warm, almost feverishly hot, and vibrated with energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own heartbeat. She closed her eyes, searching within herself for something she had never consciously acknowledged but had always felt. A name that existed beyond language, a harmonic signature unique to her existence alone. When she spoke it, the sound that emerged wasn't quite words, but a tonal pattern, a brief melody that contained the essence of everything she was and might become. The dragon responded with its own harmonic, vastly more complex, a symphony condensed into a single phrase. The two sounds merged, interweaving in a pattern that transcended the sum of its parts, and Arya felt something fundamental shift in her consciousness. She could sense the dragon's presence now, not as an external entity, but as a vast awareness interwoven with her own, separate yet connected. The bond is formed, the dragon declared, and satisfaction resonated through their shared connection. I am Zentharak, keeper of the northern depths, and you are my singer. Together we shall face what comes, and together we shall teach others the way forward. But first, singer mine, we must address your leaders. They gather above even now, preparing weapons that cannot harm me, but will cause unfortunate disruption to your city's infrastructure if employed. Such waste would be regrettable. Arya opened her eyes, and the world looked different now. Her normal vision overlaid with additional perception that showed energy patterns, harmonic flows, the mathematical structures underlying physical reality. Through Zentharak's senses, she could perceive other dragons stirring across the globe, their consciousness rippling through the planetary crust like signals through a vast neural network. She also sensed something else. Cold points in the distant darkness beyond Earth's atmosphere, moving steadily closer. The Void Fleet, still months away but approaching with inexorable patience. How do we convince them? She asked aloud. The Global Council doesn't believe in things beyond their control. They'll see you as a threat that must be neutralized. Then we must demonstrate utility before they can attempt neutralization, Zentharak replied. Fortunately, I possess knowledge of your world's deep places that your geologists lack. Beneath Nexus Prime's western districts, a fault line grows unstable. Your sensors have detected anomalous stress patterns but cannot interpret them correctly. In 17 hours, that fault will slip catastrophically. 30,000 of your citizens will perish unless action is taken. Dr. Torres's eyes widened as he verified the claim through his interface. He's right. There are geological surveys showing unusual readings, but the seismic prediction algorithms rated the risk as negligible. Your algorithms lack sufficient data, Zentharak observed. I have rested in these stones for millennia. I know their moods and movements as you know your own heartbeat. If you wish to demonstrate my value to your leaders, save those 30,000 lives. Show them that partnership with the eldest offers benefits beyond mere survival against external threats. It was a test, Arya realized, not of humanity's worthiness, but of Zentharak's claims. If the dragon's prediction proved accurate, it would establish credibility. If incorrect, it would undermine everything. Either way, they would soon know whether this impossible partnership could actually function. "What do we need to do?" she asked. "You will speak, and I will act," Zentharak replied. "Together, our voices will stabilize what threatens to break. This is the purpose of the ancient harmonies, Singer, not merely songs, but tools to reshape reality itself. Are you prepared?" Arya nodded, though terror and exhilaration warred within her. 17 hours until potential catastrophe. 93 days until the Void Fleet arrived. And she, an acoustics engineer who had never imagined her life would matter beyond designing pleasant sounds for virtual experiences, now stood at the center of events that would determine humanity's survival or extinction. Above them, in the gleaming towers of Nexus Prime, alarms continued wailing their warnings about the impossible creatures stirring beneath civilization's foundations. But here, in the ancient darkness, a new chapter of human history was beginning, written in harmonics older than language, bound by partnerships forgotten by every history book, and set to a melody that would either save the world or herald its ending. The forbidden song had been sung. The dragons had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. The Global Council convened an emergency session within the Apex Chamber, a space suspended 200 floors above Nexus Prime's foundation level. Through walls of reinforced transparent aluminum, Council members could observe the city stretching to every horizon, a testament to human achievement, and currently a reminder of how much stood at risk. 15 representatives from Earth's major governance zones occupied the semicircular arrangement of seats, each individual augmented with neural interfaces that connected them to vast databases and analytical systems. Yet despite all their technological sophistication, they faced a problem that transcended data. Dragons were real, and they were awake. Chancellor Amara Okonkwo presided over the emergency session, her dark features composed despite the chaos erupting across global communications networks. At 67, she had navigated political crises ranging from climate engine failures to economic collapses, but nothing had prepared her for the impossible biological reality currently registering on every Deep Earth sensor grid. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the forced calm of someone refusing to acknowledge panic, "we have confirmation from 17 major population centers. Massive organisms of unknown classification are active beneath our primary cities. Military analysis suggests coordinated movement, which implies intelligence and organization. We are potentially facing an extinction-level threat emerging from within our own planet." Representative Chen from the Pacific Coalition raised an immediate objection. "With respect, Chancellor, we lack sufficient data to classify this as threat or phenomenon. Yes, the organisms are unprecedented. Yes, their scale defies conventional biology, but we've detected no hostile action. They're simply moving, existing. Perhaps we should establish communication protocols before defaulting to military response." "Communication with what?" Representative Volkov from the Northern Territories interjected sharply. "Reptilian creatures the size of buildings? Based on preliminary scans, these organisms possess neural complexity that rivals our own, possibly exceeds it. If they're intelligent and have been hiding beneath our cities for unknown centuries, we must assume hostile intent until proven otherwise." The debate might have continued indefinitely had not every display screen in the Apex Chamber simultaneously activated, overriding security protocols through methods that should have been impossible. The image that appeared showed not a conference room or official transmission point, but an underground cavern illuminated by portable work lights. In the foreground stood a young woman with auburn hair and sharp, focused features. Behind her loomed something that transformed theoretical discussion into visceral reality, a dragon's eye, luminous and vast, regarding the council with ancient intelligence. "Honored members of the Global Council," the woman began, and several representatives flinched at the intrusion. "My name is Arya Voss. 12 hours ago, I discovered and activated an ancient instrument that had been sealed beneath Nexus Prime for millennia. This instrument played what I've learned is called the Forbidden Song, a harmonic sequence designed to wake the eldest, the beings you're currently detecting worldwide. I'm transmitting from the presence of one such being, who calls himself Zentharak. He wishes to address you directly." Chancellor Okonkwo found her voice despite the surreal nature of the situation. "Miss Voss, you've committed multiple violations of security protocol and possibly triggered a global crisis. On whose authority do you claim to speak for these organisms?" "On the authority of necessity, Chancellor," Arya replied steadily. "Zentharak has information crucial to human survival, information about the objects approaching from deep space, the ones your astronomers detected 6 months ago and immediately classified. He knows what they are, why they're coming, and how we might survive their arrival. But first, he offers proof of his claims and benevolent intent." The dragon's voice emerged then, not through conventional audio transmission, but through direct neural resonance that bypassed technology entirely. Every person in the apex chamber heard it simultaneously within their minds, a communication method that provoked immediate alarm among security personnel. "Leaders of the brief epoch, I am Zentharak of the Eldest. Your fear is understandable but counterproductive. In 16 hours and 42 minutes, a seismic event will devastate Nexus Prime's western districts unless action is taken. Your geological models cannot predict this catastrophe because they lack data spanning sufficient temporal depth. I, however, have rested within these stones for 3,000 years. I know their patterns and breaking points. Allow me to demonstrate my utility by preventing this disaster." Representative Garcia from the South American Union accessed seismic data through her neural interface, cross-referencing the dragon's claim against current monitoring systems. Her expression shifted from skepticism to concern. "There are stress indicators in the Western substrate, but our algorithms assess them as negligible risk. Are you suggesting our predictive models are flawed?" "I suggest your models operate on insufficient timeframes," Zentharak corrected. "You measure decades where millennia are required. The fault line in question has been building pressure since before your civilization achieved written language. It approaches critical threshold. Your sensors detect symptoms but cannot diagnose the underlying condition. This failure is not weakness, merely limitation. Allow my singer and me to address the instability. If we succeed, you gain evidence of our value. If we fail, you lose nothing you wouldn't have lost regardless." Chancellor Okonkwo conferred briefly with her advisors through silent neural communication before responding. "And if this is subterfuge, if you're creating the danger you claim to prevent, then verify independently," Zentharak suggested. "Consult your deepest geological records. Examine substrate composition beneath coordinates I will provide. You will find crystalline stress fractures propagating along predictable vectors. This process has been observable for months, but dismissed as minor variance. It is not minor. It is catastrophic potential awaiting realization." Within minutes, every geological department worldwide was analyzing the specified coordinates. The data came back conclusive and terrifying. Stress patterns that, when examined through expanded temporal models, suggested imminent seismic activity of devastating magnitude. The dragon's prediction aligned with physical evidence. Either Zentharak possessed geological knowledge surpassing humanity's best systems, or this represented the most sophisticated deception in recorded history. "Assuming your information is accurate," Representative Chen ventured, "what exactly do you propose? Our seismic dampening technology can address fault instability, but it requires weeks of preparation and infrastructure deployment. Your technology addresses symptoms through mechanical intervention," Zentharak observed. I offer fundamental solution through harmonic resonance. Stone responds to certain frequencies, becoming plastic rather than brittle, distributing stress rather than fracturing. This is not mysticism, but physics your science has begun rediscovering only recently. The ancient compact between dragons and human singers utilized these principles to maintain planetary stability. We can do so again, if you permit the attempt. Chancellor Okonkwo faced an impossible decision. Every instinct demanded caution, extensive testing, careful verification. But the clock was counting down, and 30,000 lives hung in the balance. What do you require? Access to the fault line's deepest point, Arya interjected, taking control of the conversation. Zentharak will generate specific low-frequency harmonics, while I modulate them through precise tonal sequences. Together, we can create standing waves that redistribute the accumulated stress. But we need clearance through Nexus Prime's infrastructure and cooperation from your geological monitoring teams. The council chamber erupted in debate. Representatives argued risk assessment, precedent, political implications. But ultimately, Chancellor Okonkwo recognized they had no real choice. If Zentharak was lying, the city would suffer disaster regardless. If he was truthful, refusing assistance would be criminal negligence. You have clearance, she announced, overriding objections through executive authority. But Miss Voss, understand this. You're personally responsible for the outcome. If this goes wrong, if there's any deception, you will face consequences extending beyond legal prosecution. Understood, Chancellor, Arya replied, and the transmission terminated, leaving council members staring at blank screens and contemplating a reality that had fundamentally shifted in less than 24 hours. Deep beneath Nexus Prime's western industrial sector, Arya stood beside Zentharak's massive form in a reinforced chamber that had been hastily excavated to provide access to the critical fault line. Geological teams had established monitoring equipment throughout the space, their sensors tracking infinitesimal movements within the substrate. The air smelled of ozone and mineral dust, and Arya could feel vibrations through the floor, subtle tremors that spoke of enormous forces balanced on the edge of release. "Are you afraid, Singer mine?" Zentharak asked through their private mental connection. "Terrified," Arya admitted. "I'm an acoustics engineer, not a geological specialist. I design pleasant soundscapes for entertainment. Now I'm supposed to prevent an earthquake that could kill thousands of people." "You are more than you were," Zentharak assured her. "The bond we forged has awakened capabilities dormant in your bloodline. You perceive harmonics now as I do, as fundamental forces shaping reality. Trust your senses. Listen to the stone itself. It will guide you." Arya closed her eyes, extending her awareness as Zentharak had taught her during their journey to this depth. At first, she heard only the mechanical sounds of equipment and the breathing of nearby technicians. But gradually, other frequencies emerged, deep, slow vibrations that existed below normal human perception. The substrate itself was singing, a grinding, discordant tone that spoke of stress and imminent fracture. Within that chaos, she detected the harmonics that might bring coherence, specific frequencies that could transform brittle resistance into flexible accommodation. "I hear it," she whispered. "Then we begin," Zentharak replied. The dragon's throat produced a sound that started below audibility, but rapidly climbed into ranges that made Arya's bones vibrate. It wasn't quite noise, more like structured resonance, a fundamental tone that seemed to bypass air entirely and propagate through solid matter. The monitoring equipment registered immediate effects as the substrate responded to that ancient voice. Stress indicators fluctuated wildly, and several technicians stepped back in alarm. But Arya didn't retreat. Instead, she began to sing. Her voice was unremarkable by conventional standards, pleasant but not exceptional, trained for precision rather than beauty. Yet when combined with Zentharak's deep harmonic, something extraordinary occurred. The two frequencies interwove in complex patterns, creating interference waves that traveled through the bedrock like ripples across water. Where those waves passed, molecular structures shifted, stress redistributed, and the grinding discord of imminent catastrophe began transforming into something approaching harmony. The process required absolute concentration. Arya had to maintain her tonal pattern while simultaneously adjusting for Zentharak's modulations, creating a dynamic sequence that responded to real-time feedback from the substrate itself. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the chamber's chill. Her throat began to ache from sustaining notes at unusual frequencies. But she couldn't stop. The fault line was responding, stress flowing away from critical breaking points. But the process remained incomplete. Minutes stretched into an hour. Arya's voice wavered, fatigue threatening her control, but Zentharak's presence filled her awareness with strength drawn from depths she didn't know she possessed. Through their bond, she could feel the dragon's vast reserves of energy, accumulated across millennia, now flowing through her to sustain the harmonics that were literally reshaping stone at molecular levels. Finally, when Arya's voice was nearly gone and every muscle trembled with exhaustion, the substrate stabilized. The grinding discord faded into silence. Monitoring equipment showed stress levels dropping to safe parameters, the accumulated pressure of centuries dissipating harmlessly through controlled release. It was done. The catastrophe had been prevented. Arya collapsed against Zentharak's side, too exhausted to stand. The dragon's mental voice carried unmistakable satisfaction. "Well done, singer mine! You have proven yourself and demonstrated to your leaders that the ancient partnership offers value beyond mere survival against external threats. Now comes the difficult part, convincing them to extend this cooperation across your entire species." But they didn't have time to rest. Even as geological teams confirmed the successful stabilization, new transmissions arrived from the Global Council. Chancellor Okonkwo's image appeared on hastily established communication screens, her expression grave. "Miss Voss, Zentharak, you've earned credibility. Now I need complete information. What exactly is this Void Fleet, and why does it pose an extinction threat?" Zentharak's eye opened, luminous in the chamber's dim lighting. "The Void Fleet is a manifestation of an ancient algorithmic imperative, Chancellor. A self-replicating system designed by intelligences that predate organic life in this galaxy. Its function is to identify and eliminate technological civilizations before they reach certain development thresholds. Think of it as a cosmic immune response, targeting what its creators deemed a disease, intelligence complex enough to threaten fundamental reality structures. That's insane," Representative Volkov interjected from his remote location. "Why would any intelligence create such a thing?" "Because unchecked technological advancement leads to catastrophic outcomes," Zentharak replied patiently. "Your species stands on the threshold of capabilities you barely understand: quantum manipulation, dimensional access, the ability to alter fundamental constants of physics. In the hands of immature civilizations, these tools become weapons of cosmic scope. The Void Fleet exists to ensure only civilizations that have achieved certain levels of wisdom and restraint survive to wield such power." Arya felt her blood chill. "And you're saying we haven't achieved that level?" "I'm saying you're being tested," Zentharak corrected. "Every civilization faces this trial. Most fail. Their worlds are reduced to pre-industrial states. Their populations diminished to manageable numbers. A few, very few, successfully defend themselves and earn the right to continue developing. Those who survive do so through partnership with their world's native guardians, beings like the Eldest, who exist specifically to help younger species navigate this crisis." Chancellor Okonkwo's composure finally cracked slightly. "How do we fight something like that? How do we defend against an enemy that can alter physics?" "The same way previous civilizations have," Zentharak answered. Through unity of technology and ancient power, human innovation and dragon might, your weapons alone cannot prevail. The Void Fleet adapts to conventional force too rapidly. But harmonics, the fundamental resonances that structure reality itself, these cannot be so easily countered. This is why singers exist, why the bond between your kind and ours was forged in ages past. Together, we form a defense that transcends simple violence. But time grows short. The fleet will arrive in 92 days. In that time, we must find and train every potential singer across your population. We must forge bonds between humans and dragons worldwide, and we must prepare harmonics that can unmake what the void sends against us. The implications staggered everyone listening. Arya voiced the question on every mind. How many singers do we need? Ideally, thousands, bonded to dragons across every continent and major population center. Realistically, given your time constraints, at least 300 capable pairs. Anything less, and we lack sufficient coverage to protect your primary cities when the assault begins. 300 singers. 300 people with the rare genetic heritage and acoustic sensitivity to hear and perform the ancient harmonics. 300 individuals willing to bond with creatures humanity had relegated to mythology in 92 days. That's impossible, Representative Garcia stated flatly. It's necessary, Zentharak countered. Impossible is a limitation of imagination, not reality. Your species excels at achieving the impossible when sufficiently motivated. I suggest you begin immediately. Chancellor Okonkwo took a deep breath, visibly steeling herself for what must come next. Very well. I'm authorizing the formation of a joint task force, human and dragon, to identify potential singers and begin training protocols. Miss Voss, you'll head the human contingent. Zentharak, I trust you can coordinate with your fellow eldest to establish dragon participation. We are already coordinating, Zentharak assured her. The awakening spreads as more of us emerge from slumber. Within days, representatives of the eldest will make themselves known to every major governance zone. How your local leaders respond will determine success or failure. I strongly suggest you prepare them for cooperation rather than confrontation. The transmission ended, leaving Arya alone with Zentharak and the enormity of their task. 300 singers in 92 days, an alien fleet approaching with genocidal intent. And she, an acoustics engineer who until yesterday had no idea her life would matter beyond creating pleasant sounds, now bore responsibility for coordinating humanity's survival. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted quietly. Zentharak's presence filled her awareness with ancient certainty. You can, singer mine, because you must, because no one else can hear the harmonics as you do. Because your bloodline carried this gift across generations specifically for this moment, and because I will be beside you every step of the way. Arya nodded, accepting the impossible because refusing it meant extinction. Above them, Nexus Prime citizens went about their lives, most still unaware that dragons walked the deep places of the world, that cosmic threats approached from the darkness between stars, and that their survival would depend on learning to sing songs older than human memory. The forbidden song had awakened the eldest. Now came the work of teaching humanity to join that ancient chorus before the Void Fleet arrived to silence them forever. The sky above Nexus Prime burned with colors that had no names in human languages. The Void Fleet had arrived. Across Earth, dragons and their singers stood ready. 287 bonded pairs. Not the 300 they'd hoped for, but enough, perhaps, if skill could compensate for numbers. Arya stood atop the highest tower in Nexus Prime. Zentharak coiled around its base, both gazing upward at the geometric impossibilities descending through Earth's atmosphere. The void constructs weren't ships in any conventional sense, more like mobile contradictions, spaces where physics bent around algorithmic imperatives older than stars. "Are you ready, singer mine?" Zentharak asked through their bond. Arya's hand rested on her partner's scales, feeling the vast power coiled within that ancient form. Around the world, other singers stood with their dragons, all connected through harmonics that spanned the globe like a vast neural network. They had trained for this moment, practiced the defensive sequences that might unmake what the void sent against them. Now came the test. "Ready," she confirmed. And across Earth, 287 voices lifted in perfect synchronization, joined by 287 dragons, creating a harmony that resonated through reality itself. The song they sang wasn't forbidden anymore. It was humanity's anthem of defiance, a declaration that this species, this world, would not fall quietly into extinction. The Void Fleet descended to meet them, and the battle for Earth's survival began in earnest, fought not with weapons of destruction, but with music older than memory, bonds stronger than fear, and the unified voice of two species refusing to be silenced. Whatever the outcome, humanity would face it singing. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible sci-fi tales, and comment below telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us create more content like this. Until next time, keep dreaming of the stars.